Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us and being here for what is sure to be an insightful and exciting and inspiring conversation with some pretty incredible artists. We are here to discuss the artwork that is currently on display at the Silk Purse Arts Center. The exhibit is called Living Dreams. It just opened today on August the 20th and features three really unique and talented artists. We have Pierre Leichner and Marcie Rohr, who are here with us tonight. Our third artist, Bita Mohabbati, unfortunately could not be here tonight, but we'll tell you a bit more about her when the time comes. My name is Stephen Snyder. I'm the Gallery and Communications Manager for the West Vancouver Community Arts Council, and we operate the Arts and Culture program that happens here at the Silk Purse in West Vancouver. Right next to John Lawson Park on the waterfront. It's a great space full of that we're pleased to be able to have all this artwork in. It's a beautiful location, which is the unceded and traditional territories of the Squamish Nation. And the Arts Council recognizes what a real privilege it is to be able to be on these beautiful lands and to celebrate all kinds of arts and culture with our host nations, our community members, our neighbors who have stewarded this land since time immemorial. So this exhibit, as we said, it's called Living Dreams. It opens August 20th today and runs until September the 14th. And we're going to have a Meet the Artist reception on September 4th right here at the gallery. So please come on by and visit then and be able to meet our talented artists in person. If you have any questions or comments, you can drop those in the chat and we will get to that a little bit later in this conversation. Now, let's meet our incredible artists. They'll tell you a little bit about themselves. Let's start with Marcie. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Marcie. I've been making art for as long as I can remember. I was just always a very imaginative child, and I just first want to say that, you know, having thought about this show, thought about the theme of the show quite a bit lately, of course. I just want to recognize what a privilege is for me to be able to practice art and to be able to exhibit in a time when there's so many people that could be exhibiting their work, but are facing just unimaginable circumstances around the world. And I definitely don't take for granted that I get to share my work and share my passion. It is truly amazing to be able to do that. My work focuses quite a bit on renewal, care, grief, and transformation through personal experiences of grief. I lost my sister to cancer in 2021, and also through professional observations as a registered nurse. And my discipline and practice is largely focused around painting and textile, but I love to experiment and try all kinds of different things. I graduated from Emily Carr in 2021. So that's a little bit about me.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing, Marcie. Next up, Pierre, could you tell us a bit about you?
Yeah, thank you. Again, I do want to extend my thanks to the council and to you, Stephen, for facilitating and helping us through this process. And by myself, well, I guess I describe myself as an interdisciplinary artist with a research bent. And what that means to me is that I really use different media depending on what the projects are that I'm kind of researching, because I do believe that art has been kind of downplayed, if you want, as a method of understanding, really understanding issues, kind of in a research way of pushing the understanding. So I don't have a specific media. I kind of use, I let the issue that I'm looking at or working with guide the media that I use, as it is in this case, as we'll talk about it later. Over the years, I've developed kind of an emphasis or kind of focused on environmental issues and social political issues, economic issues, and mental health issues. I come to this show. Really, I want to thank Marcie also for the lovely opening or description that she wrote, which I think is really inspiring and so meaningful. And I encourage people to read it. But my personal history comes from I often kind of smile at this. The Russians army, they invaded Romania in 1947 when my parents became refugees and fled eventually to France. My grandparents nearly drowned in the Mediterranean, crossing over to France. And again, when the Russians invaded the Hungary in 1956, the rest of my family came to Canada. And eventually, from France, I found in 1960, we came over as well to Canada, and I'm thankful for being here. So that's essentially how I came to this show today, and to have artwork on this show, which I started doing about 10 years ago, when the issue of borders and all that started to come into people's mind and been talked about, and this movement to protect and build more borders as a solution to our humanity seem to be increasing, and the suffering that comes along with borders. So that's essentially what brought me to the show at this point.
Thank you as well, Pierre, for sharing. You've both had some interesting journeys and interesting backgrounds for moving into art and tackling some pretty big issues. But there's, like Pierre said, there's this really beautiful idea of hope amongst all of your work, which I'm sure we'll get into throughout the rest of the conversation. Yeah, and as Pierre mentioned, there's this fantastic sort of thesis and statement about the exhibit, which we will have available that you can read when you come onto the gallery and see it. But we'll kind of get to the meat of that and why this show is called Living Dreams throughout the rest of this conversation. Next, we've got a little a sneak peek of the show, a little quick pre-recorded tour to give you all a bit of a taste of what you can expect when you come on in and see the show. Just pull that up. So this is quick layout of what you see when you come in off of our sort of street side entrance, how we have the gallery sort of laid out. And then coming in from the opposite side, from our waterfront entrance, we start with two pretty dynamic sculptures here from Pierre. And then that moves on to Bita's really beautiful and captivating paintings in oils. You know, there's a lot of emotion in the work on display here. Lots of different emotions. Bita's work is no exception. Painting, and also there's a sculpture in some. You can see on these two works, there's these two great little birds carved out of wood on top. And then from there we move into some of Marcie's really interesting and layered and dynamic painting. Which, yeah, there's so much going on for you to really kind of explore in this work, to see all the different layers and what could everything mean. It's a real journey. And something some of you might notice, the framing on these paintings is pretty unique. Maybe we'll hear a little bit about that later, but it's textiles rather than wood or metal. It's pretty cool. And then from there, we have another one of Pierre's works, sculpture. Again, a lot of cool media. We've got cement, resin, barbed wire, pretty interesting. And then Pierre also has these really, really striking cyanotype prints. Yeah, and just like Marcie's work and Bita's work, you really have to be up close and in person to appreciate all three artists. There's a lot of really interesting texture, details, color, shapes, symbols going on in all of the work. So that's kind of the show in a little bit of a nutshell. Next up, our artists have all selected a piece on display to talk a little bit about. First, I'll just pull up Bita's piece and say a little bit more about her since she can't be here with us this evening. It's a pretty wonderful painting that we're going to see in just a moment. Okay, this is one of Bita Mohabbati's paintings. Bita is a multidisciplinary artist and educator based in North Vancouver, originally from Iran, whose work explores the emotional and psychological dimensions of the human experience. With a career spanning over 3 decades, she has exhibited internationally in group and solo exhibitions across Iran, Europe, and North America. For her art is rooted in realism, but also surrealism and modernism, often reflecting on themes of isolation, resilience, and human connection in the modern world. She's a graduate of the Tehran University of Architecture. She also ran her own art studio in Tehran, where she mentored over 200 students and curated more than 10 exhibitions. Through her intricate compositions and philosophical depth, Bita crafts visual dialogues that resonate beyond the canvas, provoking thought, empathy, and a deeper engagement with the world around us. The work on display, like this piece here, examine sort of the tensions between presence and absence in the digital age. This work is called Renewal of Hope. It's an oil on canvas. And the work in this series features subjects that are often solitary, such as trees, potted plants, vessels, or even figures, with contrasted by a richly layered environments that are sort of atmospheric and amorphous, but bleed into the subject, almost overtaking them, suggesting narratives of alienation, transformation, and hopefully introspection. These works invite viewers to consider whether the subjects are being consumed by their surroundings or emerging from them with a new strength. And with each of Bita's paintings, she's provided a little poem. So I will read you the poem for Renewal of Hope. Stillness and mist, a delicate sprout emerges from a once dry branch, a sign of life's return, fragile yet steadfast, reaching towards the light. Above this scene, a free and quiet bird watches in silence, a gentle witness to the journey of hope and renewal. So that is Bita's work and a little bit about her. Next up, let's chat with Pierre about the piece that he has chosen today. Excellent. Pierre, could you please tell us about this work?
Sure, thank you, Stephen. Okay, so just in general, to introduce a bit the work, is when I take on a project, I often gravitate to thinking of what are the components, what are the materials that may be involved in the project that are related to it. So in this case, it came to me that to use cement, which is one of the things the walls are made out of, and to use barbed wire, which is about, unfortunately, about borders and prisons and so on, keeping people out. And of course, in some of the other work, I use shoelaces. So it is actually shoelaces. Most of this work is then based on these three components: shoelaces, barbed wire, and cement. And sometimes I do use resin as a base or as a color that is related. In this case, we have the sky, but in other places, it's maybe water or maybe earth. In my work in general, I tend to use my approach is tied to kind of bring in the viewer and create a bit of a surprise. So have a bit of like first, oh, this is beautiful, but then okay, this is not that beautiful. This is actually pretty hard. So the first thing you might see without seeing the wire is this very well-known, best perhaps well-known hand gesture in Western art from Michelangelo, the hand of God reaching out to Adam, which is essentially, I think, still interpreted as a gesture of love, reaching out, if you want, compassion, caring, and so on. And I kind of, juxtaposed it immediately with barbed wire, encased it in barbed wire, which is the exact opposite, if you know, it's keeping people out one way or the other. So it's a kind of paradox and clash in this piece that it kind of runs through many of the pieces, and including the cyanotype prints. The other thing that's kind of runs through a lot of my work is this quote from Charles Dickens, "The Tale of Two Cities," and this is, imagine, 1870s, and it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was this, a season of light. It was a season of darkness. And that kind of really resonates with what's going on with our world today. And I think that kind of reflects, in a way, the human nature, the human animal, of being able to create the best, do the most wonderful and compassionate gestures as we can when we, gather together to help people through disasters, for kind of very difficult times. And at the same time, we're totally able of doing the worst, of doing horrific things to each other at the same time, on the basis of beliefs, territoriality, and so on. So again, this kind of juxtaposition of the best and the worst at the same time, which is kind of absurd if you think of it. It's an absurdity, really. It's hard to comprehend, and that kind of represents a bit of this piece for me at this point.
Thank you for sharing, Pierre. Yeah, there's that juxtaposition you see in all of your work.
Right.
Yeah, these harsh, provocative elements, but there is always, I think, something in them that's really human. Like, for instance, this piece, you've got these really delicate hands reaching out for each other, or you've even got somewhere there's a fist kind of raised in resistance. So there is that nice softness to your work as well.
Right. So the hands are hands are very meaningful in terms of symbols and expression. So I do hands that are in fact angry hands, but I also have hands of victory and hands of compassion and reaching out. So I try to represent all the complex and multiple feelings that and emotions that people have around this issue, and dreams, in fact, of moving forward, and they're ongoing living dreams. So they have all different emotions.
No, definitely. And I know we don't have one of the cyanotypes pulled up right now, but we saw them in the tour. What made you want to work with not only sculpture, but with that method of printmaking as well?
Right. Again, yeah, that's an interesting question. There's something, as you know, cyanotype is a technique that's really is kind of one of the first methods that was invented for photo making. And you have essentially you're printing light acts, and the image that you have is a negative of what you're putting on the paper, so that where the light hits, the pigment doesn't show, but the pigment shows everywhere, right? So there's this. So in a sense, the link I make to that, to something, is a quote from Leonard Cohen. There's a crack in everything, and that's where the light gets in. So it kind of symbolic for me as to not only is it somewhat ephemeral, but it's also that we are broken, and we need to embrace that rather than fight it. But at the same time, it is through those breaks that the light comes in, and the growth, and this we move forward. So it's again that darkness and light interplay that we come back to. The best of things and the worst of things, the darkness and the light.
Yeah, that's what the human experience is. Thank you so much, Pierre. Next up, Marcie, could you please tell us about this wonderful piece?
Well, like I said in the beginning, I just feel so honored to be here, and just having heard Bita and Pierre's referencing the work, I just feel like these are very hard acts to follow, and I'm feeling quite nervous, actually. um, but I'll start by saying that I tried something a little bit different and a little bit daring, which was to bring a blank canvas to the Harmony Arts Festival. And this is not like, if you know my practice, this is not typical for me. I typically build up my work in layers over months and sometimes even years. But as I thought about it more, I really wanted to reference this festival sort of as a way of kind of exploring this theme a little bit deeper. Because being there, watching people walking by with their families, with their sweet little dogs, with their grandchildren, listening to music, laughing together, gossiping, just enjoying catching up with neighbors. It is in a sense a picture of peace and beauty. And for so many people around the world, that would absolutely be a dream to be able to do that. I couldn't help today but think about the geography of West Vancouver in comparison to the geography of Gaza. You know, what a pristine, beautiful place this location is in West Vancouver. And it's pristine and beautiful because of the nature, but it's also pristine and beautiful because of the peace politically that has allowed nature to flourish and thrive. And I've been thinking quite a bit about this relationship between ecological health and well-being and peace, political peace. Nobody hates a blue sky. Nobody hates the smell of fresh flowers. nobody hates clean drinking water. Everybody wants these things. And uh, I just going back to Pierre's statement about his background, I have to say I'm sort of the second generation of a similar family who had to flee Poland during the Second World War. And my grandparents could never stop expressing their gratitude for Canada, and um, how we, as the children who grew up here, needed to know how good we had it. And they just kept on saying, "You don't know how good you have it." Um, so the work that we're talking about here, I put together a few notes just to keep me on track, because you can tell I do get off track. Um, so yeah, generally my work does play on themes of nature, because I do feel it's something to always dwell on and learn from. Nature is one of our greatest teachers. It's a great unifier around the world. When you think of the concept of living dreams, we might think of lavish luxury, or simply, the American dream, so to speak, which was a bungalow with a white picket fence. Um, for so many people, living the dream is just simply freedom, just simply being free. Um, so going back to Harmony Arts Festival, I brought this blank canvas to Harmony Arts Festival, which really represents freedom in so many ways. Yeah. And I think that when I was making this painting, I was thinking that I love and respect work that has more overt themes of activism, and I've always kind of declared myself a terrible activist, because my work is not political. I'm very peace loving. Yeah, sometimes I don't speak up when I should. I know that about myself. But I think that there is power in childlike forms. I think there's power in referencing the blue sky. I think there's power in referencing the plant forms, because they unify this shared dream that we have um, around the world as human beings. Yeah. So it's kind of all I can really say about this, and I just feel like I've learned from now that I can't feed the viewer with a very, very specific uh my discussion around what this piece means. It's half baked on purpose, because I feel like I will mess up the viewer's story that you are experiencing. And I've learned to know what to say, but also to keep my mouth shut, so that the viewer can experience something that transcends even the human language. So I hope that when this piece is viewed, that you can actually feel the essence of healthy nature, of freedom, of joy, of childlike wonder. I hope you can just feel it. I hope that it's okay that I'm not explaining exactly how that is the case. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Marcie. And yes, it's I totally hear what you're saying about not wanting to explain too much and just letting the viewer sort of figure out their own story with the work, especially when something is, abstract like this, where there is a lot of room for interpretation. But I definitely see that freedom and that joy in these shapes and forms, and we definitely all need to recognize that we have that right now and hope for it. When you were talking about sort of being inspired by nature and talking about artwork that transcends language, I've noticed in the pieces here on display that you kind of have really developed your own visual language. Um, how was that intentional, or did that just sort of happen intuitively and naturally?
I was super inspired by a few intuitive artists back in the early 2000s. One of them really inspired me was Jesse Reno. He's an artist from Portland, and he was leading workshops at the time. And I was fortunate enough to attend one of them, and I just remember some key key nuggets that he shared. But then, of course, that was years and years ago, and the journey became my own. And I didn't really understand a lot of the things he said until I learned to process the death of my sister through painting. It became an active meditation to block out aspects of the canvas that I actually loved. It was almost like aggressive and strange to paint something and love it, and then to allow another raw and angry side of me to actually just go back with the paint and um, just with this thick opaque paint just cover up sections that I thought were very beautiful on purpose. And I yeah, I come from a religious background. I still consider myself Christian. And there is a phrase that is in the Bible that says, "Behold, I am doing something new. I'm doing a new thing." And I just that just kept on going and going and going in my head as I would just cover, turn the painting, cry, cover more sections, and physically become engaged with this creative process in a way that I had never ever done before. And I learned the relationship between creation and destruction are completely inseparable um, in geology, in the history of our Earth that is so beautiful and special that we get to live in, that has oxygen that we can breathe. It wasn't always like that. It wasn't always habitable for humans. And it became that way because of almost every single landform, every single thing that we know and can touch and experience is here because of a catastrophe. Um, and so, to just be aware of that is, and then the application of that to colonization and just everything. You perceive, um, yeah, I think Pierre was talking about this too. It's almost like grief and joy are always together, beauty and sorrow are always together. These two things. So, and I mean, when I say two things, I mean like a huge spectrum of emotions and thoughts and feelings that go in between all of them. So, uh, yeah, there's a lot there.
Thank you again. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate both of you being so honest and open with where your work comes from. Very, very human places, because you're talking about the human experience and what we live through and hopefully get to live towards. Um, and interesting, how you're all three artists, very different work, um, all very different emotions, but there are a couple of interesting similarities, right? Themes of, or at least in backgrounds of all three of you, this idea of immigration, um, and moving here and living with the stories of yourself or the stories of your family, and what that's like, which is pretty interesting. And also a little bit of connected some science in the background, right? Pierre was a psychologist, Marcie, a registered nurse. So there's that health and science connection as well, which is pretty interesting. I'll ask the two of you, obviously that influences your work because you're dealing with health or had been and with people and the human condition. Um, and even though some of your work maybe explores, Marcie said nature is a real inspiration for you. And Pierre, I know some of your work deals with things like black holes. Um, do you see that sort of idea of exploring humanity as always present in your work, even if you're sort of drifting off into other things?
Yeah, okay. Did you want to go, Marcie, or should I go first? Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, in a way, it ties back to why I call myself research artist, although it's debatable. But anyway, it's because I do like to think of art as communication and exploration, and as an undervalued, and also particularly in Western society, it's become for a long time has been undervalued uh, by our society in general, unfortunately, and the way our system is. Um, to really understand something, you really do have to feel it at some point. Otherwise, it just stays somewhere between your ears and you don't live it, you don't act on it, you don't move it. And that's where both, all my colleagues and so on, the ability of art to create emotion is really a unique thing that makes it different from science. And I'm talking about all forms of art, of course, music, literature, and so on. And that ability to create the emotion physically, if you want, or psychologically, if you want, is so important. And it shapes our humanity so much. I mean, we again undervalue it because so much of the changes that actually come about in the way we behave come through art. If you go back about how attitudes, values change, they often eventually come around through art. And they're also, if I look at artists in general, I like to say that we are sometimes the precursors. We see things before a lot of the rest of the society sees, and then eventually we do eventually lead to some changes for the better. I believe so. I think art usually goes for the better because it's built around understanding, compassion, reaching out. So I think it's very little art that is negative. I mean, there is some, I suppose, if you want, but there's very, very little of it. There are very few artists that are out there, arguing, let's get more violent, So, yes, so exploration for sure. Exploration for the self as well. Marcie has talked about how it is also a self-understanding. For some, including myself, it can be self-healing as well as you go through the work and express yourself. So many layers. Yeah, it is for artists. For me, it is a form of exploration. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm just thinking about the relationship between nursing and art and trying to find the right words. Um, I think that because nursing is such an intimate and almost, I would say, sacred role, and it's very, very confidential. So there's a lot of um, wordless, just raw emotion without like sometimes I kind of I don't know, I sort of used to wish that my work was more literal, that I thought, "Oh, I should be learning all these things about human beings, maybe like figurative work or things like that." But there's just so many days where the experience there are no words. There are no It's not about the figure. It's not about the it's just purely just the desire to express, yeah, just the raw emotions of what people carry, of the tragedies people face, of the illnesses that they have lived through. Um, trying to just live a normal life when you've had, thousands of people's a little but important piece of their story kind of in your heart is so it's such an interesting way to live. And But I think that it's not that my work as an artist informs, I mean, that my work as a nurse informs my art as much as I've always seen myself as an artist first. I was an artist far longer in my childhood and in my essence than I was a nurse. I had to learn to develop uh, the um, the side of my brain that is needed for nursing. The other one for art. See, I can't even tell the difference between the left and the right brain. That's how whatever side brain I am. I went into nursing to, like, I felt the need to balance myself because I was so yeah, I was just so imaginative. I thought it could help my brain. Um, but I think that from what I've been told and what I've experienced, I think that it's actually uh, the painting and the art that has influenced my nursing profoundly. It has made me for sure a different kind of nurse, a nurse that sees past maybe typical stereotypes that other people might get a little more stuck on sometimes. Um, and one of my one speaker that I did a webinar with, she has her PhD in nursing, with the basis that nursing is a form of art, and specifically it's a form of performance art. And when she said that, that so resonated with me, like the creativity that is required, especially in these times when we are experiencing a population explosion in the Lower Mainland, and at the same time a very severe resource incapacity of resources. Ever since the pandemic, it's been quite obvious that there's something amiss in the healthcare system. And so I honestly feel like nursing is like it's my uh gift. What's the word? Like, it's like my duty to be in society, like, just as much as art, because there are so many people that don't have a family doctor. They are needing help, and I can provide that tangible help. um I love both of those things. I love both of those expressions of creativity very, very much. They both are very special. Yeah, very, very. I'm honored, very honored, in both ways, to be an artist and a nurse.
Thank you both so much for those really amazing thoughts and perspectives. And I think this work on display from all three of you really hits all of those notes that you're talking about. This idea of exploration and transformation and ultimately healing, is very present in all of your work, and in this fantastic title that you've come up with, this living dreams, because it's kind of been mentioned throughout tonight, what does living the dream mean? Um, it means a lot of different things for different people. And I think you can really explore what that means with all this work in this really fantastic and really is a really emotional exhibit, and just also just technically and visually very stunning. Um, it's pretty wonderful. So I really appreciate you being here and sharing your artwork and sharing all of these thoughts with us in this conversation. It's been wonderful. Um, and if anyone watching this, if you see this before September the 4th, please mark that in your calendars and come on down to the Silk Purse from 6 till 8 and take in the stunning show and meet our talented artists and get to chat with them in person. And Living Dreams is on display here at the Silk Purse until September 14th. And if you want to follow our artists, in the description of this video, there's links to websites, social media, so you can stay up to date with everything that's going on with them. So thank you, Pierre Leichner, Marcie Rohr, and Bita Mohabbati for sharing your fantastic artwork with us. And thanks, Pierre and Marcie, for being here for this conversation. It's been wonderful.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
See you on the 4th.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was nice to meet you, Pierre, in this way. And nice to see you again, Stephen.
Totally. And thank you, everyone, for watching this live, and anyone who's watching this later. It's been great, and hopefully you do come on and see the show. And we will chat in a couple weeks about a new exhibition. So take care. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.